Hello, my name's Professor Rachel Julian from Leeds Beckett University in the UK. And in this video, we're going to be thinking about the ways in which research methods can be incorporated into participatory research and the impact that our choice of methods and methodology has upon the way we work with communities. The choice of research methodologies and methods that we choose have a direct impact on how we work with the communities and the type of knowledge and conclusions that we come up with. We're not limited by research methodology by using participatory methods and engaging with communities, but we do need to be aware that some of the approaches, so like ethnography, it naturally fits into community, and some others, more like experimental design, need to be approached with community approval and partnership in order to fully engage with the participatory nature of it. Research methods broadly fall into quantitative, methods which involve numbers and statistics, and qualitative methods, which are about involving written, narrative, arts, and visual material. We're going to look mostly at methods that are useful for studying sort of society and social structures. And the choice of your methodology might be informed by the type of approach to knowledge and the type of data you have available, but also might be informed by your role and the relationship with the community and the situation that you're studying. A research method isn't usually a single choice which is made by somebody. We draw on different elements in order to create a method which is going to work both with the situation and the community and with the forms of data that we're looking for. This is a key area for researchers to think about how they communicate with their partners, their communities, about designing the research. The choosing of a research question through that partnership and that engagement is the first step. But as then you come back to look at methodologies, you may find you have to revisit that research question. So we're talking about participatory research as an iterative process where there is an element of revisiting previous decisions in the light of the next stage of decisions. So let's think about some examples of how different methods might fit with participatory methodologies. So if we take ethnography or drawing on ethnography as part of it, typically ethnographers live, work, socialise and interact a lot with the people and the situation they're studying. They take into account their own experiences, what they observe, and any recorded interviews or conversations. And they study the context as well as the actual people that they're interested in. So in this way, you can see that building a partnership where you've got people who are already there and researchers who maybe embed themselves within the community will create a body of knowledge which can be used and developed in order to answer the question by drawing on ethnography. But we don't have to look exclusively at that as well. This could be combined with survey or data collected by other agencies. We could also use feminist models, particularly in participatory research. We can draw on that because they address the power issues. And here you've got the power issues between the researcher and the research. But they're also concerned about social justice and thinking about the power issues of communities within political and other institutional systems, and also about including the voices of those who are often excluded. So they're methodologies which are about addressing some of the exclusion that we're concerned about. The participatory action research is developed as a form of exercises and meetings and processes through which people in communities can look at what they do. So sometimes within organisations as well. And it's all sometimes referred to as action research because the purpose and thought process of the research is about enacting change. So it's about thinking about the community in which you live and what needs to happen there. And we can also draw on narrative methods. Narrative method and narrative inquiry examines what people say, what the stories they tell, and the societal narratives or norms that exist that are maybe affecting people, constraining them, or even empowering them. So we can combine elements of all of these together and look at how they are best culturally and contextually used, and also best able to produce data which can be analysed in order to evidence research findings. The essence of participatory research is that the people themselves are participants and users of the research and not just subjects. So in this way, we can think about the research, the way we do the research and the way we do the data collection as more than sort of interviews and focus group discussions. So in which the people are subjects and the data is collected off them, taken away and analysed by somebody else. So if we're going to involve people in the research, we need to think about the ways in which they might be communicating the knowledge that they have. So it's absolutely true that in participatory research, you can use secondary data. That might be things that people themselves have already published or produced, which could include art materials, it could include blogs, it could include citizens' media. But it also might mean that they have been cited within other research and they've produced their own craft materials or their own conversations, their own social organisational structures. So you can study all of those things, and those can to a certain extent help you articulate the way in which you're going to approach the research question already. The validity of the findings when you have got them is not so much by using a particular method, but it's that connection between can you articulate why your choice of research methodology and data collection, however that is, and the rigour with which you collect that data and analyse it so you're not being selective, and how that all connects to your research question. That's where your validity of your findings come in, because you can explain why that data is relevant, how it was collected, how it was analysed, and therefore what the findings are. So we don't have to be constrained by methods that are traditionally used by researchers. In participatory methodology, we can draw out into creative methods. We can ask people to make videos, use photographs, to work in groups, to do artwork together. They can have their conversations through sharing food, through making and sharing food together. We can have research and data collection methods that are culturally appropriate. They can start from the place where communities are. If they have existing structures, if they have existing sort of like ways of meeting and communicating, they can be a way of ensuring inclusivity, that voices are heard, and that capacities are increased within the communities that we work with. If we want to know about sort of like the numbers of people involved in any part of the research, we can do a survey, we can do it on paper, we can do it online. You can identify with the community, helping to identify who is going to be asked the questions in that survey. But you could also be using other databases that are already connected across sort of like government databases, migration, census data. We can observe and count people, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the researcher has to be doing that. In fact, people in the community themselves can build in that sort of like understanding how to observe, how to count, and how to record the data. And they will be a trusted part of the community, and people will know what's happening. You could use sort of like either social media or citizens media to actually like count sort of like reports of stories. And there are benefits and disadvantages to all these methods. So the fact that some of them might be new and might be come up with different styles of data doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to use them. If we're looking to explore maybe complex social causes for a particular phenomenon we're looking at, or trying to understand the reasons behind a particular phenomenon that's not clear, we can use a more qualitative set of data. So we can do interviews, but they don't necessarily have to be done by a researcher. Research training can be carried out and people could research one another. They can sort of like use artifacts, so about sort of culture. They could make them significant by place. And you always want to be thinking about, in the interview, avoiding people just telling you what they think you want to hear. Okay, so that's why interviews by researchers sometimes have limited value, because people are very used to answering questions to someone in authority. So a slightly different way of getting people to talk is to offer them open-ended conversations. So actually, you can have a theme, be it children, education, health, water, anything, and broadly guiding the conversation, but letting people decide for themselves what they're going to talk about. And whilst this might seem like you're going to gather a lot of unnecessary data, you will get new insights because it's not you deciding, as the researcher deciding, what is going to be asked, but actually the people themselves deciding what is important. So this is also a very empowering method of people participating in research, because they get to make sure that their voice is heard and not just represented through somebody else. It can reveal the information that you expect and do that, but there also might be information you didn't even think about. And sometimes when this is done within communities and a group of people from the community sit together to talk about something, they're actually, if you set it up and facilitate it well, and maybe including sort of like art or food or something, people start to hear other people's stories, and you can actually build momentum and new understanding within the community themselves as a result of the research process, not just as a result of the findings. Photos and videos are very useful because people respond to visual media very differently than they do to written or spoken word. So people could look at photos or videos about the particular problem that you're looking at, or other people who share that problem, and they can discuss their ideas about what those photos or videos are talking about, what they think other people might do. They could make videos about their situation. This has been done in several places where people are trained to use video cameras or given cameras, and they produce their own narrative about their life, their own sort of like what significant events or places are there. And these prove to be very powerful tools, not only in sort of developing new areas of research, but in aiding people to understand the importance of why the research and the research findings should be carried out. Something very direct about people speaking in their own voice through their own written or visual work. Sometimes people will provide photos from their own sort of like family archive or something like that, which can help understand some of the history of a place. People could keep diaries, and again, a very sort of like way in which sort of like if people understand the purpose and what's going to happen to the data that they write in the diaries as they're shared as part of the research. But people could keep a diary about sort of like things that happen to them, or sort of like how they feel, or the number of interactions that we have. A researcher could be observing a cultural event, so not setting something up, but observing something that's going on, observing behaviour, what kind of information is shared, or what kind of narratives are most powerful within that. And you can set up sort of simulations or scenarios for people to think about, which might, if you're trying to explore different options for sort of like transport, health, education, that setting up scenarios where people discuss what would happen if is also another way. And these are all research methods that are you need the participation and the trust of the community, the people that you set up in developing that research question, that flows through, so that actually you're gaining really data that is so insightful, and also the people themselves feel like they have a role and a ownership of. Although it's an iterative process, having a strong engagement with the community, listening and building in capacity building will mean that research methods and the choices can be explored in the project as much as the actual data which is going to be developed. Thanks.